go ahead and kick us off. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join our Careers in Health and Human Services panel. We have a lot of really awesome folks on our panel today. I want to make sure I give them enough time to answer questions. A couple of questions that we have and a couple of questions that you all have as well. But before we get into that, I did want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. So we are continuing to give out gift cards and scholarships throughout today's panels. So just make sure that you are engaging in the chat and engaging in the Q&A function, and so that way we can just make sure that we're checking in on that. And of course, for our individuals who will be earning their gift cards and scholarships, we'll go ahead and reach out to you all once the event is over. And then one just really quick announcement one quick item that I wanted to mention. A big thank you to Koenig International again for being our scholarship partner for this evening. So we really appreciate their generous support in helping put this event together as well. So to kind of kick things off, I want to go ahead and introduce our panelists. So today we have again, some wonderful individuals. So we have today with us Shantrice Burton, who is a speech pathologist. We have Laura Pena, who is a registered nurse. And then we have Dr. Richard Koenig, who is a clinical psychologist. So I'd like for us to just kind of maybe take a minute or two to kind of share a little bit about like where we're at, what our work entails, and then I will go ahead and kick us off with the first question. And then Laura, maybe we can start with you.
So like Maro mentioned, my name is Laura. I'm a registered nurse. My day entails a lot of different things. So I work in an inpatient setting, which means like I work in the hospital with people who like are acutely ill. So, you come to the ER, you have to get admitted for observation and you need medications or procedures, that kind of thing. So I work on what's called an ICU step down unit. So intensive care is like the highest level that you can be monitored in the hospital. And I work just one level below that. So people who are needing like closer monitoring, but don't necessarily like need to be in intensive care. On a regular day, I have 3 patients that I take care of, like in collaboration with a team of doctors, whether it's like usually just like a hospitalist doctor is what it's called, and like other specialty doctors who are like also on the case. So my day entails a lot of medications, a lot of monitoring, working with like different teams to, get the patients where they need to be and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about my day or my education or anything you guys want to know.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Shantrice, how about yourself?
Hello. First off, can I just say that I am so excited to be here today? First I want to say that I was a part of the Fulfillment Fund when I was in junior high school. I won't say how long ago that was, but it was I've loved it ever since. And just the fact that they are still doing the amazing job that they're doing for students and families, it's just, melts my heart all the time. So anyways, I'm sorry. My name is Shantrice Burton. I'm a speech language pathologist. I currently work with the San Bernardino City Unified School District. I'm working in a few different districts, but this is where I am currently. So, and our field is so broad. So I'll just give you a few different ideas of the different things that we work with. So we work with from 0 to 99 as far as ages. People who have struggles with different speech sound disorders, language impairments, cognitive communication disorders. We work with people who may not be able to verbally communicate. So you figure out some sort of a communication system for them to be able to use, to be able to, let others know what their needs and wants are. We also work with people who may have struggles with different types of voice disorders, so many different things. So I personally work at an elementary school. I have an entire elementary school to myself. And so I work with a lot of students who have moderate to severe disabilities. That includes autism, that includes various developmental disorders. It may include students who may just have the different cognitive impairments that may affect their speech and language with various severities. So I love what I do, and I'm so excited to be here to share that with everybody.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And Dr. Koenig, how about yourself?
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm also very excited to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to answer any questions that may come up during the session or after. So, like Mauro introduced me, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I currently work in a private practice that is based out of Richmond, California. And the private practice is called the Sana House, and it's all online. So it's completely virtual, and it caters towards a Latinx community. It's a small practice. I myself focus on treating folks with, adults with ADHD. I work with couples, and I also do a lot of trauma-focused work. So my days vary a lot from day to day, but I usually work 50-minute sessions. And I think the nice part about working in private practice is I get to decide what my own schedule will look like, and I get to work from home. There's a lot of pros and cons to that. In terms of the therapy, it would be kind of like a Zoom session like this, and I could have between sometimes 3 patients to 7, 8 patients a day. I'm happy to answer any other questions that may be coming up.
Thank you so much. So I see a common theme, and that is that our days can all be very different, right? Every day can be very, very different depending on who we see, who we work with. So, I'm sure, or hopefully our students are kind of, noticing that as well. So yeah, to our participants, our students, I should say, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A. We'll try to go through as many of them as we can. I did want to kick off our with one question, which is, when did you realize you wanted to go into this field? That can take you back to however long, so feel free to kind of expand. And Dr. Koenig, we can start with you.
Sure. I actually realized that I wanted to go into this field. I was in college. I think it was maybe sophomore year in college, and I was actually experiencing some mental health issues myself in college, and so I went to the counseling and psychological services at my school, and I had such a good experience. I was like, what do you do? And and so I asked my therapist at that time at university, what this job was, and then I got resourced into how to get directed into this particular field, and I really enjoy what I do. It can. Yeah, I feel like everybody in healthcare would agree. I think that sometimes being in healthcare can take a toll on you if you don't take care of yourself and put yourself first, but also it's very rewarding work.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I think you bring up a great point. Sometimes it's just a matter of asking, right? Like, hey, how did you get to this? How did you get to doing this, right? And I'm sure folks will be able to answer that question. And Shantrice, how about yourself?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I chuckle every time I think about it because my dad had asked me at a young age what it was that I wanted to become when I became an adult, and I'd always said a criminal attorney. I felt as if I wanted to be one of those good attorneys who would, help people who really weren't criminals to not be go to prison or what have you. And so it was funny, when I started college, I took I think it was a government course, and I thought to myself, you don't like to argue. you can't be a lawyer. And so I don't know what prompted me, but I took the beginning course, the 100 introduction course to communicative disorders. Never heard of it before in my life, but I fell in love with it. And so that's how that came to be. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I'm sure our students have probably taken a look at their course catalog and seen the name of a course, and they're like, wait, what? Like, what does that mean? But let's try it out, right? And Laura, how about you?
So I was really fortunate that I discovered early on that I wanted to be a nurse. So I always thought I wanted to be a doctor, or I knew that I wanted to like help people who were sick. I wanted to serve the underserved. I grew up in Los Angeles, and so, it has a lot of, underserved population. So I always knew I wanted to do that. And so I actually did an internship when I was in high school. I was a junior. And so I was on the nursing floor, and I still thought I wanted to be a doctor. And then on my first day, I'll never forget, I saw the doctor come in, see the patient for 3 to 5 minutes, and then leave. And I was so shocked because I didn't know what a day in a nurse's life looked like until I did that internship. So I guess just seeing firsthand, like the doctors have their own role and then the nurses have their own role, and the nurses are the ones who are there with the patient like all day. They communicate when things are going wrong or what the patient might need, and they do so much, and I never knew that they did all of that. So it was really during that internship that my mind just totally switched, and I really saw myself in the nurse's role, like as like I just really identified with like how caring they were, and just like anything that the patient needed, like they were there. And I obviously, like, I work with physicians, and they do an amazing job, and I respect them as well, but each role is different. And so when I did that internship and I saw what the nurse did every day, I really like identified more with that. And then that's when I decided that like that's what I wanted to do. So then I went to college for nursing.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, is, taking up those opportunities and those experiences to, kind of see what the field is really like, right? And then seeing like, does this match like what I was expecting? And if it doesn't, like, how else can I pivot to try and, still align with what I'm interested in? So yeah, so thank you for sharing that. I do want to kind of get to a couple of questions in the chat. The first one I wanted to bring up is about majors. So how did you all, or I should ask, what did you all major in? How does that align with your career? Does it align with your career or not? And we can start with Shantrice.
Yeah, so the thing about speech pathology is you want to make sure you major in specifically, some colleges may call it communication disorders, communicative disorders, for the undergrad part of it. Sometimes what happens is, let's say you may major in a completely different field. Then what you will want to do is find a college that has a post-bac program specifically for communicative disorders, because you have to have those undergrad class specifically for speech pathology in order to then be able to move on to a master's program that has specifically speech pathology. So that's one thing about this field. It has to be specific to speech pathology. And there are many universities, again, when it comes to the master's program, it's usually called a master's. I know they have an MA, MS, it doesn't really matter. We need all of you. And speech pathologies, but undergrad is it could be called various things. So my background, I went to the University of Redlands, and I received my undergrad there in communicative disorders. And then I went to online to Nova Southeastern University to receive my master's in speech pathology. So that's how I did it.
Great, thank you for sharing. Laura, how about you?
So for nursing, so personally what I did is that, like I said, since I kind of realized early on that I wanted to do nursing, I went for a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. So it's like the most direct way to become a registered nurse. There's different types of nurses. There's like licensed vocational nurses, but it's like a different type of like program that you do. So what I did is that I did a bachelor's degree. I went to UCLA, go Bruins. And then I know that there was a question in the chat that I just wanted to address really quick between like UC and CSU nursing programs. Honestly, the most important things to look for are their pass rates for the licensing exam. So to become a registered nurse, you have to take a licensing exam. And so if you look it up online, like different programs have to post like their pass rates. And so I think that's like a good way, because I wouldn't say it matters necessarily, because it's the same degree, like you still have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, but I think one good thing to keep in mind would be like how well they prepare you for like your state licensing exam. But If you don't do a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and you have, let's say, like a bachelor in a different field, you can do a master's in entry-level nursing, it's what it's called. So it also prepares you to become a registered nurse. Or you can do like, you can have 2 bachelor's degrees as well. So if you get a bachelor's degree in one thing and then you decide you want to do nursing, then there's programs like West Coast University, and like other universities that offer a Bachelor of Science in Nursing as well. You just have to like complete the prerequisites, which are usually like math, sciences, English, etc. So yeah, that's what I did.
Great, thank you for sharing.
For me, I majored in biopsychology. So I was initially pre-med, and then like I switched to biopsychology, and I needed to have certain, like Shantrice was saying, there's certain classes, prerequisites that I needed to have in order to enter my doctoral program. And so that was, I completed them all during my bachelor's. And to answer a question that I saw in the Q&A, for Emerson's question, what would you say is the best way to go about choosing the right program for you? So there's many factors. Thinking about it very, looking back, I really, this is maybe a one-off opinion, but I do think that geography is really important in terms of thinking about where, like what city or part of the country you want to be in during a very intense part of your life, because all of the time that you have off or whenever you're not studying, you want to be able to really prioritize yourself, engage in self-care. And so that's something that is really important and something to think about. And also I did my program in the Bay Area, and the Bay Area is a really diverse place. And that is something that was really important for me in order to be able to serve a lot of different communities after I graduate, and really, I think it prepared me well.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think, oh, sorry, Shantrice, I want to share.
All right, I just wanted to add too,
no,
I can let people know. For my field, in order to become an entry-level clinician, you have to have your master's degree. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I know that, again, each field, each position, each role has very different requirements. And so it's really good to kind of know that early on to see how we can kind of start preparing for that. Dr. Koenig, you kind of touched a little bit on, 2 questions that I see in the chat right now related to self-care, right? And mental health. You all are working with people every single day in different capacities. How do you all take care of yourselves, right? Working in this, in these fields, and how do you practice that self-care? And I'll open it up to whoever would like to start with that one. I know that one could be kind of, it's different for each person.
Take naps. Honestly, that's one thing that I do. But I am one of those who loves to get out and go somewhere. Like I adore traveling, even if it's somewhere nearby. I feel like, and it's a great thing. We have these dreams and aspirations of going and visiting, Italy, New Zealand, different things like that. When there are also places right around where you are that are just as amazing, just as great experiences. And I think also it's very important to, as much as possible, have a great community around you. That support is so important. I know that for me, I have, family and lots of friends and everything, but also just to be able to have that support at my current job as well does so much for my mind, for my heart, and everything for this field. So it's so great to be able to have that collaboration. Sometimes we do need to vent to let things out. But in order for us to be able to come back and say, okay, I can continue to do this. So I think being mindful of it, because I know that in our field, for all 3 of us, I'm sure that, obviously we're in this field because we love what we do. We love helping people. And I know that can become more of who we become, as opposed to making sure that we are taking care of ourselves mentally. And so just, it's a learning experience to figure out what that is, but I think definitely that community that you have around yourself.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Laura, go for it.
This is a hard question because I think just like Shantrice mentioned, we're in this type of career because we love to help others. And I think a lot of us are guilty of spending all our energy on helping others and leaving ourselves last. So I'd say for me, I think remembering my purpose is one of the biggest things that I do to cope with like the stress of my job. So I think when all of you are choosing what you want to do, really do it for the right reasons and have your heart in it, because on the hardest days, it doesn't matter like how much you get paid and like all of these other things. Like it matters that you feel happy. And even though my job is really challenging, there are so many moments where I feel so happy just to be able to do my job. And so I think having a good why, having like a strong purpose and reminding yourself of that and surrounding yourself with people who remind you of that is like the most important thing you can do for yourself. When I come home from a really stressful day, my parents will tell me, well, remember when you used to be so excited to do what you do? And I'm like, you're right, you're right. And then just like Shantrice mentioned, traveling, going out, having a good group of friends to like distract yourself. Personally, I think mental health is really important, just like Dr. Koenig mentioned. So go to therapy, have really like a professional outlet if you can, if you're comfortable with that, because these jobs can be really stressful and you can be, exposed to things that are really hard and sometimes feel like, you wish you could have done more for someone or all of these things. And at the end of the day, we're just one person. And so being able to like talk to someone about that has also been really helpful, like especially for me personally. So those are kind of the things that I do to help relax and de-stress with my job.
Laura and Shantrice are bringing up some really great points. Again, re-emphasizing community and particularly also like culturally congruent community is really important. Sometimes being in systems like college or grad school, they tend to be very white systems, and that can be very isolating if you are not from that culture. And so getting to know like who are your people very quickly, and that can be very helpful. For me, I really like to go out dancing a lot, and I think moving my body, listening to music with my friends is like such an important way that I engage in self-care. I also surf. I grew up surfing, and I do yoga when I can. Moving your body is really important, and if you can move your body in community, even better.
That's great. That's amazing. I really loved how you all emphasized like community, still like participating in the activities and like everything that you still enjoy, right? Because I think that's definitely what continues to, and I was looking for those emojis too, the little dancing ones. But I think it's really important to still continue to do the things that you really enjoy. And on this theme of community, right? And really like connecting with others, I did want to ask about mentors, right? Like, how did you all start building your community of mentors when you were in school? What did that look like? How did you connect with them, and how did that help? And again, I'll open it up to whoever would like to answer.
I don't mind starting again. So I feel like for my field, there's such a high need for people that you can meet a person and tell with their personality if it's something that will suit them and that it will suit the field. So I feel like for me, it just kind of happened naturally. When I started working, I started out as a teacher's assistant, and it just so happened that I was in one of the last classes with a teacher who had a credential that was for the communicatively handicapped population. They completely got rid of that credential, and she's retired already, but that, for me, I thought was amazing. So, obviously being able to connect with her. Another job that I had was to work as a one-on-one paraprofessional with a high school student who had autism. you know, the different awful things that could happen, unfortunately, to kiddos in high school. So just being able to be there to help him more effectively learn, as opposed to having to deal with the different things that he was dealing with in high school. So being able to meet professionals in that way, because I was able to attend the meetings that were held to help him from the various therapies he was receiving. And then I went on to become a speech language pathology assistant. And that's where, you know, I was able to meet so many speech language pathologists. Now it's crazy, a crazy caseload, crazy life, because there is no caseload max or anything for speech assistants. However, the number of therapists that I was able to meet, the amount of therapy techniques I was able to learn, the different therapists who I was able to glean from, that to me was just mind blowing, and I would not change it. So it was just, for me, it just kind of evolved into that throughout the different jobs that I had.
I can go next. I think when I think of mentorship, I think about something at I have an older sister, and we both grew up in Peru. She moved to the US first, and I moved here after. And she told me when she was in college that one of the most important things for her was she was never be afraid to ask questions, and to ask other people questions, because that's always going to move you forward. And the worst thing that somebody can say is no. Like, I don't want to answer your question. Like, then it's a filter for not talking or engaging with that person further. But thinking about who can I ask questions to, that is, I think about like short-term kind of mentor and then like long-term mentor. So think about somebody that is like maybe a year above you in that path, and then somebody that is maybe 4 or 5 years above you in that path. And then that way you have a short-term lens and then like a long-term lens, and that really helps you think about what that path is really going to look like. I didn't really have I actually had a friend of mine that was also going into clinical psychology, and it took me like a little bit longer than her to get in, and so I kept asking her questions about the application process, and then, you know, reviewing some essays about it. And then once I was in grad school, there was a mentor that I had, and I'm very grateful for my school for having a mentorship program, because the mentorship programs, and for those of you thinking about college, grad school, always look out for places that have mentorship programs, because mentorship programs assure success. And I had another Latina mentor that was very helpful and was like, take this class, don't do this. And then it saved me a lot of time and effort.
For me, mentorship is so important. So for me, when I was in high school, and like I mentioned, I did an internship, my biggest advice would be, don't be afraid to ask people for their numbers. Don't be afraid to ask people like to connect. I was very like not shy high school student. I would, like, when I volunteered on the nursing floor, I asked the charge nurse, I was like, can I have your number? Like, can I ask you questions about being a nurse? And honestly, you'll learn that when you, how do I say this? Like, when you tell people what you want to do, they'll be like, oh, I have a friend who does that, or oh, I know someone who's a nurse, or oh, I know someone who works there. And so when I was in high school and I did that internship, one of the nurses who worked on the floor was actually the mom of someone I went to high school with. So when I told her, I was like, oh, I go to this and this high school, she immediately was like, oh, come with me, let me show you this, let me show you that. And so then later on, I kept that connection. And when I applied to that hospital, she was really willing to look at my application, give me advice, etc. And I did the same thing anywhere I went. When I was in high school and even in college, anywhere I went, I was asking people like, hey, can I have your number? Let's connect, or can I have your social media? Now we have LinkedIn. LinkedIn didn't exist. I don't think we had LinkedIn when I was like in high school. So now we have like other professional ways to like connect with people. So I would say like, always ask people like for their information, ask them questions, even if it's like just in that moment, ask them a few questions about, you know, a program that they did or what their journey to like school was like. When I was in college, I remember we would do our clinical hours like at UCLA Hospital. And so I would ask the nurses there, like, how'd you get to work here? Where did you start? Did you do a program? And so I would always ask them, and you'd be surprised that like people are so willing to talk about something that they love, like their career, you know, like people are so willing to engage. And so I would always do that. I would always, you know, ask people questions. And I'd say similar to what Dr. Koenig said, like also look for formal mentorship programs, because I was also a part of those. Like throughout college, there was like you could sign up to like have a mentor who was like, you know, 2 or 3 years above you in school, or, you know, sometimes like for example, the UCLA School of Nursing has like an alumni mentorship program, so they can even pair you with someone who's like already working in the field. So definitely looking for programs who like have those mentorship like resources available, and always like joining the mentorship networks if you can is also like something really great that you can do. So yeah, that's my advice. Always ask people, and then you see where you go.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing. It seems like the theme is ask questions, right? And like Dr. Koenig said, like the worst they could say is no, right? And now, you know, maybe not to talk to them, or maybe not to connect with them. But I mean, again, asking those questions and you know, hopefully getting some, you know, positive responses. But another question that has kind of come up is, you know, challenges. Like, what are some of the challenges and obstacles that maybe you all have you know, encountered on your journeys to where you are now? Shantrice, we can start with you.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I was a good student. And so when I got to college, it just didn't turn out the way that I'd hoped, I would say. And then, you know, for my field, when you apply for the master's program, they want you to have a certain GPA, because my field is, you know, they don't separate between learning about becoming a clinician in schools and a clinician in the medical field. You learn all of it all together. So you're kind of applying to this master's program as if you're going into the field as a healthcare clinician. And I, you know, with my credential and everything, I am able to do that. So because of that, my GPA was not high enough. I wasn't able to do that. As a result, I just had to take a bit of a different route. And honestly, to this day, I don't regret it, because I was able that's when I decided to become a speech language pathology assistant. I was able, like I said before, to learn so much from all the different speech pathologists that I had worked with over the 6.5 years. But because it was, I believe, 10 years between when I had finished my bachelor's program and when I had applied, I had to retake all those undergraduate classes again. So for me, I could have become angry. I could have become bitter, all kinds of things. But instead, I chose to push forward and to move forward, because this is what I wanted to do. And I knew it was what I wanted to do. And also when I took those, I went through a post-bac program. When I took those courses, I understood why. You know, research, things change so much in 10 years. And so they just want to make sure that you are up to date with the most current research and everything once you graduate. Yes, when we graduate from our master's programs, you're taught to be a beginning clinician. However, they want to make sure that you still have all of the tools that you need during that time. And so for me, that was a struggle. Also during college, my father passed away, and that was so difficult. So just, I feel like those were the two major things for me that I had to overcome. And so as a result, it took me 10, 15 years later, but I'm here. And so honestly, I have no complaints, no regrets, and it's been amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Dr. Koenig, how about yourself?
When think about challenges, you know, I actually, yeah, similar, well, not, there's similar points, different story as Shantrice. During high school, I had a pretty good GPA, and then I went to college at UC Davis, and it was very challenging for me being in a space where there's sometimes in a biology class there's 600 students, and sometimes I'll get lost because there's so many people per class. I didn't do well in college, and I didn't have a GPA that was high enough to get into the school that I wanted to, and so I had to actually write write a letter for my like reach school, like my for the doctoral level, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get in, and then I ended up getting into my dream grad school, and yes, don't be defeated if things happen. There's always a path forward. 11 years later, I'm a doctor and things are going well, and I had a really terrible GPA in college. Do not it's easy to, but it doesn't mean that roads are completely closed. There's always a path forward. Mentors are really helpful for that.
For me, I'd say there's a lot of challenges. So similar points. So I was a really good student in high school. I got to college and I did like a summer bridge program since I'm a first generation college student. I didn't know anything about college. And so my first science class, C-, and I was crushed. I had never gotten such a low grade in my life. Like I didn't know how to deal with it. Like I thought I just couldn't, I couldn't deal with it. And I really had to adapt my studying habits, seek tutoring, things that I had never done before. I was really I was struggling academically in the beginning. And so once I started going to tutoring and approaching different methods of learning, my grades did improve, but it was really hard at first because I was going to school with people who had gone to schools where they had private tutors and where they had just a lot more resources than I did. And, UCLA is a great school, but it's predominantly white institution. So I think another one of my biggest struggles was that dealing with not being in a place where everyone looked like me, because that's what I was used to, specifically for nursing. Like if you are here watching and, you want to be a nurse, please become a nurse because we need more people of color in nursing. So in my nursing program, it was only 50 students. It's a very competitive program, and only I'd say 11 of us were people of color. Everyone else was not. And so that was really, really hard for me. I always felt like I was an imposter. I always felt like I didn't belong. And so it wasn't until I found my best friends in my nursing cohort, who are still my best friends to this day, that I was able to really reaffirm to myself, no, I got into this school. I deserve to be here. I deserve to be in this, career. So that's something that is always kind of a struggle. Even when I got my first job, I was like, oh my God, again, I'm the only person in this room that speaks Spanish and is of, that's Latina, etc. So I think that can be a big challenge because it can cause a lot of imposter syndrome. But I think surrounding yourself, like we mentioned earlier, with communities that give you strength and remind you of your strengths, it's really, really important. So I think that was a big struggle for me. And just overall having to navigate, finding my first job without, anyone in my family ever being in healthcare. That was definitely a struggle. But like we mentioned earlier, mentorship can really help kind of fill in those gaps. So you can have someone to ask those questions to. And then I'd say one of my other struggles is just coping with, the things that I see at work. Being a registered nurse is great, but things are hard and people are really sick. And sometimes you can't do more for people and you wish you could. And so I think dealing with that can be difficult. But like I mentioned earlier, there's so many great moments as well. And so once you kind of learn to cope with everything, then, you'll be solid. But it is hard at first. Just like anything that's new is challenging while you learn how to cope with it and how best to support yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for, to each of you for sharing these challenges and these obstacles. I know it's not easy, right? Navigating these spaces, like you mentioned. And, I think, Laura, you bring up a good point, navigating these spaces as a person of color, right? And what that looks like. But I think, again, re-emphasizing the importance of community and really getting in touch with folks who you can ask these questions to. So I think with that question, we are at time. Thank you all so much to our panelists. We hope that you all enjoy the rest of your evening, and we hope that you all have a great week.